Some friends, we would like to start our fourth session, the concluded session of the day. Okay, we are starting the fourth session of the day, the concluding one, and you will find, I think, echoes to what you've just heard in previous sessions. In these sessions, the title of this session is very general, and I hope we can make it a more interactive session, so you can jump in, you can speak, you can ask questions whenever you like. The hour is quite complicated, and we would like to make it more interactive. Okay, so I will shortly present the panel, but first I'll say that the panel is about ethical dilemmas in the age of transparency. The title of our panel is phrased in a very subtle manner: ethical dilemmas in the age of transparency. An alternative, maybe more bold phrasing, would suggest, instead of ethical dilemmas, that we are witnessing ethical crisis or ethical meltdown. Moreover, maybe the name of the era in our title, the age of transparency, is a bit confusing, as we all adore transparency and openness, and thus the age of transparency received positive connotations and an optimistic flair. But maybe we should talk about the journalism in the age of the chaos of transparency, or the jungle of transparency. We'll talk about it right now. In your booklet, the description of the panel is a series of questions. Is high-tech is killing the confidential source? Product placement and content marketing? Are press council relevant for the Facebook generation, and are journalistic ethics codes relevant to today's reporter? To discuss this question, we have a panel here from right to left. We have John Hammer from the Washington News Council. We have Galachowski from Mako, gay activist and a writer. And we have Anat Walid, a journalist and media researcher, and myself, Moti Nagel from Netanya Academic College. I suggest that we will start our panel in 3 minutes for each panelist to say what he thinks are the main ethical dilemmas in the age of transparency, or the crisis of transparency, or the chaos. So you'll say it yourself. You'll decide. So we'll start with you, John, and we'll go. Okay, you wanted to stay here?
No, I can sit here. Is this on? Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you, and I'm very happy to be here. This is my first Alliance of Independent Press Council's conference, and after meeting many of you, I realized that I should have been coming to this conference for several years in the past. I've been to 3 conferences of the Organization of News Ombudsman, which some of you are familiar with, and with my colleagues, Tarmu Tamart from Estonia and John Horgan from Ireland have been to those conferences. I've been before. But the Washington News Council, several of you, including my friend Kobus, have noted, maybe unique among all of the press councils represented here. Someone asked me, are you appointed by the government or appointed by the press or the media? And I said, no, we appointed ourselves. We are an independent citizens organization formed by a group of people, including journalists, who thought there was a problem with media trust, credibility, accuracy, fairness in the state of Washington. And many of my journalist friends asked me, who appointed you? And my answer to them is, who appointed you? I mean, think about it. Journalists actually, at least in the States, no one appoints them. They don't have a license. They don't even need a journalism degree. Anyone can be a journalist, as we've had lots of comments in our discussion so far today. And the United States also is different with our First Amendment. Under the First Amendment in the US, there can be no government control, regulation, laws regulating the press. So self-regulation is desirable, but it's also virtually non-existent in the States. There was a National News Council, which existed for about 13 or 14 years in the 1970s and 1980s. It went under. It could not sustain itself, partly because the Washington Post and the New York Times opposed the idea of any kind of outside oversight. It went under. There have been various state, smaller local news councils across the country in the US over the years. We were modeled after the Minnesota News Council, state of Minnesota, which existed for about 30 or 40 years, since 1970. Sorry, this is cutting in and out.
Yeah, is there another mic here? Yeah, try this one.
We modeled ourselves after the Minnesota News Council, but they folded about 2 years ago for lack of funding. So we are now the only news press council in the United States. We're trying some different things. I've talked to a few people already. We're trying some experiments. Some of you may have been aware of our last major complaint case. I shared it with Eric, and I believe some of you may have seen it. We had a major complaint against the largest newspaper in Washington State, my former employer. I was an editorial writer and columnist there for about 15 years, the Seattle Times. We had a major complaint against the Seattle Times. It went to a hearing, which is our process. I know a lot of you have hearings as well. We decided to try something different with this hearing. In addition to our 10-member council hearing panel, half of whom are journalists or have background experience in journalism, half of whom are members of the public. They're academics, or they have that corporate business background, small business, large business. It's a very interesting mixed group. And they heard the complaint in a 3-hour public hearing. But in addition, we webcast it. We webcast it, thanks to our state's version of C-SPAN, TVW it's called. It's a wonderful organization that broadcasts public events all over the state. So we webcast it, and we invited the public to vote. I don't know if anybody here voted. We got quite a few votes online and comments, very interesting comments of people who watched the hearing. In addition, we asked the live audience to vote, and we had 50, 60 members of the live audience. So we had 3 different groups kind of judging this complaint and assessing the validity of the concerns of the complainant. Pretty interesting. We upheld the complaint. The panel voted 6-4. Split vote. So the newspaper got some votes, but the majority voted to uphold the complaint. The live audience voted even by a larger margin to uphold the complaint. And online, even a larger margin. So what we're trying to do is democratize the idea of press oversight and review and critique. Now, I don't know whether this will work or not. We're going to keep trying. We have another effort underway to involve students. And actually, at our last hearing, one of my journalism professor colleagues sent about 15 students who voted. They sat there and voted on the complaint as well. We're going to try to do that statewide. We're going to try to involve journalism schools all over the state of Washington, and let students also play the role of press council, news council, as an educational experiment and role. Will this, who knows? Will it help? Will it hurt? Will the journalists buy into it? I mean, I think it'd be hard for journalists to oppose something that's educational for journalism students, won't it? It seems to me that would be a tough thing to, push back. But we'll see. They may say, oh, they don't know anything. Why should they judge us? Well, you were a journalism student once, and you thought you knew everything. I did. So anyway, we'll see how that works. We're trying something else. The word transparency is often used these days. We've heard it here at this conference several times. And some of you may know about another little effort that we've undertaken in the last few years here. We've come up with something called the Tao of journalism.
Comment from Norway. Well, it's interesting examples, but voting and in press councils like yours is not in any way self-regulation. There's not, you're not in the self-business, so to speak. You agree on that?
I do. We're in the citizen regulation business,
Yeah.
which I think may be more powerful. I would like to have more press participation. When we started the News Council, we went around to met with all the editors, publishers, general managers in the state, invited them to participate, to help us form the press council, to help us make it effective. Most of them decided not to participate. So we did it anyway. We invited citizens who cared about high quality, accurate, ethical media to get involved. And over the years we've had, we have 3-year terms for my council members. We've had some turnover. We've had 30 or 40 people now over the 15 years of our existence, including Bill Gates Sr., who sat on my council for the first 4 years. He said, I'm pretty busy running the biggest foundation in the world. I may not make all your meetings, and he never missed a meeting. So that was, very, obviously, it gave us a lot of credibility. But you're right. I mean, self-regulation. Washington State has 0 ombudsman. No news outlet in my state has an ombudsman anymore. When I was at the Seattle Times, they did, but they abolished the position. As the Washington Post recently kind of abolished or downgraded the position of ombudsman. All of you know that Jeff Bezos from Amazon in Seattle just bought the Washington Post. And I sent an email to someone there, what would your advice be? And I said, reinstate the ombudsman at the Washington Post, and start a news council, a press council in Washington, D.C. I'm not holding my breath.
Okay, we have another question. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Nina Pora. I'm from Finland. I'm the secretary of the Finnish Council, and I actually wanted to say the same thing, just about the self-regulating, if it is real self-regulating when you are crowdsourcing the ethics. And I remember you sent us also, you invited us to vote as well, and I went through the documents, and I felt it would have been unethical to vote on the case because I couldn't make up my mind based on the documents you sent. And if I remember correct, also the chief editor, was it Seattle News or something like that, he didn't want to part of it either. He didn't show up in the trial or whatever you call it. So he felt like it's more like fun, like you said, not real self-regulating. I'm not sure if I remember this in a correct way. And then another remark on commercial pressures. I think you are totally right that they are quite a threat at the moment. And in Finland we are facing quite tough times with these pressures, and especially with periodicals who feel that we in the council, that we are sort of harming their business when we are taking things too seriously, and it is a real threat at the moment.
Thank you very much. You want to
Yeah, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question to Gal. Gal, what makes it ethical, do you think, to force someone out of a closet when he doesn't want to come out? Why? I mean, I know that you feel passionately about it. Why do you think this is necessary for us as a society?
Okay, the issue of outing is it's a very big and complicated issue. I will represent the Israeli way of thinking of my clan in Israel. Israel, by the way, I don't know if you know, but Israel has become as we call it, the gay heaven. Israel has become a very good country for LGBT people.
Tel Aviv.
Israel.
Okay.
Israel.
The state of Tel Aviv.
The state of Israel, no. The state of Israel is a very good place for LGBT people.
Okay.
I think that if you go to the south of Israel, to the smallest villages, it's still much better to be a gay person there than it is in the smallest villages of the U.S. In Montana, for example. So that's why I'm saying it's a gay heaven. And I think that Israel has done this process in quite fast, in about 25 years. And I think, well, if you go deeper into the reasons why it happened, it has many reasons that we can talk about very shortly. First of all, the main reason for gay acceptance in Israel is that the Israeli society is very much a society that faces death. Everybody in Israel knows somebody who was their father, their brother, their best friend in high school, their neighbor from the street who died very young at 18, 20 as a soldier, and in recent years, in the recent decades, as somebody who was killed by suicide bomber. So the picture, the photo of a dead, young, beautiful man or woman is very, very much encrypted into the Israeli mind. So when they think about raising their kids, the main thing they think about is how do I bring these kids to 21 or to adulthood without them dying. And when this is the psyche, although it's in the back of your mind, not really in front, then everything less than dying becomes a little easier. And this is why when Israel is found out about the gay concept,
Israeli liberalism, humanitarianism.
Yes. I mean, even if a lot of people don't admit it, even if a lot of people don't admit it to themselves, even it's much easier when a kid is gay because he's still alive. And for example, in Israel, I was once in San Francisco and we were talking about the rate of kids when teenagers in America, I think about 25% of teenagers who come out to their parents in America are kicked out of their houses. In Israel, you have like 50 to 60 kids a year. They go to this house in Tel Aviv where they can spend their time, and like every year, 95% of them go back to their families and make peace with them. I mean, people don't disconnect. But you were asking about outing. So, first of all, outing, in my opinion, concerns only famous people, and this goes to the things we are talking about in this panel. It's not about private people. Private people can come out whenever they want, in their pace. If they want to come out, they can come out. If they don't want to come out, they can stay in the closet. Of course, I think it's better to come out, but we don't deal with them. The only people we deal with, we also don't deal with people who are, for example, married and have a family and have kids and run a totally straight life. The only people that are in the center of the question are people like, for example, the American Anderson Cooper until 2 years ago, people who run a perfectly open gay lifestyle, like Judy Foster, but although they are very famous, they put a pressure on the press and the media not to publish it. For example, there was a time in like 15 years ago in America where Rosie O'Donnell, she was a very famous news TV host, she was gay, she had a girlfriend. When she would go to the Knicks game in New York, everybody would show her picture, her photo in the audience without her spouse sitting next to her because she was in the closet. Like, this is unheard of. Why would everybody accept this from her? She's open, she makes a lot of money, she's very public, she's on television, she says her opinions about a lot of things. So I think that the question of outing concerns only the people who make everybody who sits in this room play a game, a false game, and dance to rules that nobody has ever. He was talking about the rules, about who makes the rules and who put you, and who, you know, and who has the right to give you the rules. How come somebody, and it's a rule that applies only to gay people. if you're a heterosexual and you get divorced, yes, or you have an affair, the press will hunt you like, you know, like crazy. You will not, if you're in America, for example, in Israel as well, when a famous couple in Israel separated, like a famous couple of celebrities separated a month ago, there were like 100 photographers under their house. They're just like these people who got separated. But the only thing that the media accepts for some reason, that is not, I mean, of course, the only thing that the media accepts from people nowadays, when they say, no, please don't tell this, is the fact that they are gay. And I think there's no reason to do it, because I don't think being a gay is a problem. I don't think, especially, and also I think that when you're a famous person, you make this kind of deal with the world that you use the world and the media and being famous to come ahead and to get, you know, to become more famous and richer and more popular. And you can't decide what to keep out, especially not the gay part.
Gal, why? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't know this is like the most burning ethical
No,
question.
it's not
Like
the it's not the most ethical. It's not the question and I
I
answer.
just feel the urge to react to
Yeah.
what you said. First, outing is an active act. Okay, you take someone out of the closet. I think it's the most violent act you can take towards an individual. I totally disagree with you in your position about it. I think it violates the right of someone for self-definition, and a person can decide if you want some things and other keep private. And
What
I
else?
think
Give me
it's
another
part
example.
of an
Give me another example of
freedom
something.
for self-identity.
Give me an example of something of this.
Affairs outside of marriage is someone that the press in Israel usually don't deal with, and I think unless it has some kind of public interest that I don't know somebody is being
No,
you're
you're just
We are on ethical dilemmas.
You're making
but
it
I
up.
don't think it's
You're
a matter,
making it up. The
I don't
gossip
think
columns in Israel are full of stories every week about people who have affairs, or hints about people who have affairs out of the bedroom.
well,
Gal,
not as far as I know.
why do you think journalists still keep?
Why?
Why?
There's a very simple reason.
Okay.
I think the reason that people accepted it,
No, the journalists are not.
because until 30 years ago, being a gay man or a lesbian woman or a gay man or a lesbian woman was something. It was either against the law, or it was something people were ashamed of. And still, in some places, people are still ashamed of it. And that's why when you say and especially when you were talking about very famous celebrities, they do it only because of commercial reasons. There's no other reason for them to do it. And the other thing is for example, we have now the biggest question about outing in Israel at the moment is of a member of parliament. I will not say if it's a man or a woman because they are still in the closet. And it's a very interesting question because this person became very, very popular in the last 3 years. Before they entered politics, they were out of the closet. I mean, they had boyfriends, they would go to parties. Everybody in the community knew who they are. And when they started to run to parliament, they said to the press, we don't want you to write it. And the press accepted it, and they didn't write it. And now this person is a member of parliament, and the press does not ask them the question. Although, of course, in the internet everybody writes about it, but they give them the privilege to go back into the closet just because they wanted to, and because they say in private sessions that their mother doesn't like everybody to know. Which the answer for that is, if your mother doesn't like it, maybe you shouldn't be a member of parliament.
The age of
It's a two-sided closet in Israel. Like you come in and out, in and out. It's very convenient.
It's not a closet; it's a coffin. It's okay.
At the risk of getting in the middle here, I won't take that risk. If I can resolve this, I can resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I would like to go back, however, to our colleague from Finland who made the observation about our last hearing. And thank you very much for reading the documentation and trying to understand what was a very complicated, difficult case for everyone who was involved. And I understand your reluctance to vote because it was hard for all those who were there and who read the material to vote. We also noted that the editor of the Seattle Times, the newspaper that was involved, did not attend the hearing. True, they did not participate. We invited them to come. We have no legal power or authority. We can't force the media organizations to participate in our process. But the fact that they chose not to come, that doesn't mean we're going to allow them to veto the hearing process. I mean, we still have our process. Over 15 years, they did respond in writing, however. And in every case we've had in 15 years, the media organizations have responded in significant detail in writing to the complaints and addressed the issues brought up at the hearing. In some cases, they have covered the hearings. In this case, they decided not to, which I think was a dereliction of duty and disappointing.
John,
When we had a complaint against their competitor newspaper, they covered that in great detail.
I want to go to the general question.
Yeah.
Does the citizens' organizations are alternative to the self-regulations, or can help the self-regulating bodies that are represented here?
It seems to me they can help. It seems to me here's an opportunity. It seems to me, and I told the Ombudsman the same thing, maybe you can, again, broaden the discussion. Get a bigger tent. There are a lot of smart people out there who have strong views on media ethics, accuracy. Invite them to participate in different ways. Each of you, there's a lot of variety among press councils. You all have different cultures, you have different histories, you have different approaches. But is this worth a try? As I said before, what else is working? Seems to me not very much. Everybody's struggling with, we heard from Lord Hunt, how is the new system in Britain going to work? We're trying to find things that work here. It just seems to me that inviting more citizens. Education is another mission that we have panels and discussions on media ethics. We've had a breakfast series where we invite, some of you may know a book, Global Media Ethics by Dr. Stephen Ward. He's our next speaker at our breakfast series. Blur, the book by Bill Kovic and Tom Rosenstiel, How Citizens Can Know What's True in the Age of Information Overload, or whatever, I don't have the exact subtitle. A great book called Don't Be Fooled by John McManus, a former professor at San Francisco State University. It's a pretty recent book. Giving citizens the tools to make the same kinds of judgments that you make about media accuracy and ethics and thoroughness and professionalism. What's wrong with that?
Can I add something? I think that although everybody's very concerned, and we should be very concerned, I think that in Israel, for example, in the last couple of years, there's a big change in the sense that more people understand about economics and the way economics work and the way the big organizations deal with the money than they ever did. I mean, there was 2 years ago we had all the riots and everything, but even further than this, I think an interesting point to look at is that in Israel, maybe because of the internet, and maybe because of the open medias, when you see everything that's happening now, for example, with the gas, with Israel discovering the gas at the sea, and the way that the big moguls want to take the money and how they want to take down the interest the country takes from them and everything, there's much more knowledge in the public about it, and the public is much wiser and much more, how would they say it, and stands up for their rights much more than they did 10 years ago. The feeling is that there's less that can be done behind closed doors nowadays than could have been done 15 years ago, I think.
Anata, I want to go back to you about the commercial versus the editorial divide. There is the fairy tale about the castle that on one wing we have the editorial, and the other wing we have the commercial department, and there are alligators between them, but it's a fairy tale, of course. So
the alligators became mediators, you know? They kind of do the deals between the two sides.
The dealers.
Yeah.
They own the business. They own the business.
Yeah, they own the business, exactly. Right.
Okay,
So yeah, it's a myth because the press and media in general was never successful or highly successful in separating between editorial and commercial, and that's been always, I would say, at least a tension. Okay, it's been an ideal that was to a certain extent achieved and to a certain extent like violated. But it was never like paradise. Okay, and it really depends on time. We won't go into history, but what's happening now is quite new, and that these distinctions simply collapse or erode would be probably more gentle or to describe it. Collapse is like it's falling at once. Erode is like it's happening gradually, but pretty quickly. So if you could say, well, there is this, and there are these alligators swimming between them, now it's all about there are active forces that work to blur the line between the two sides. And can I give an example?
yeah, of course.
Okay. So I've been writing a column about it, so it's kind of a vivid example from recent time. This is the financial weekend magazine of what used to be until recently most popular newspaper in Israel, still is. Okay, let's say still.
It's the pay paper, it's the most.
Pay paper. If you don't consider Israeli, then this is the most popular, influential newspaper in Israel, Yediot Achronot. That's the weekend supplement of the financial section. It's called Mammon, Finance, whatever. This, 3 weeks ago, sorry?
I can hold it for you.
Okay, this was basically, and I would say, they consume it. It was simply sold in the 3 or 4 weeks ago to a bank as a sponsor, and so the whole section in that weekend was dedicated to a special project by Bank Hapoalim, which is a marketing project of like how we're helping families to solve their financial problems. And if you see in the first spread, there is an op-ed by the general manager of Bank Hapoalim, who's now become kind of an opinion writer, next to an op-ed by the leading economic analyst of Yediot Achronot, Plotzker. And Plotzker is writing about how terrible it is that the state is deserting families to the mercies of other elements, which is, of course, Bank Hapoalim, who is now helping people to find their way in the darkness of, home finance. And the general manager of Bank Hapoalim is writing about how wonderful was the project that they were leading for years. And this whole magazine, which usually has articles about different financial matters and consumer matters, was dedicated to the stories of, this is the middle spread. That's a huge ad for, of course, Bank Hapoalim. Now, I just want to show you how, sorry? So,
yeah, of course.
It's a good question, because it's in your face as much as it's concealed. And what do I mean by that? So there is the logo of Bank Hapoalim and the logo of this project at every spread of the newspaper. So is that a disclosure or is it branding? Do you know what I mean? And the test is, of course, would my mom recognize? Yeah, we had this kind of expression.
How much did they pay for it, do you think?
I don't know, but usually the deals that I was writing about, and I knew it's a lot of money, okay? It's a lot of money. It depends where, and so the weekend will be more money. And the last ad is, of course, for Bank Hapoalim. So when you talk about branded content, still marketing, sponsorship, it's pretty sneaky, because is that journalistic material, or is that a marketing campaign? You know, it's trying to be both, and I'm saying it is a marketing campaign. It surely is not a journalistic material. And
do you have experiences like this in your country?
just two more sentences. If you kind of be very literate about this, then you would see that like the fonting and the colors used to design this section are the same colors of the branding of Banco Polim, for example. So Banco Polim is like all over the place with the choice of the topics, the general topic, the design, the logos and everything, and that's a commercial deal. And that's when I'm talking about commercialization. Yeah, because you're an editor of like.
Yes, but,
so,
okay. This is really disgusting, but the thing is, I think that we have to, that looking at this, I mean, there's nothing good I have to say about this supplement, of course. But I think that it's time maybe to look at all these things in a little different way. Because, for example, I try to look at my Instagram. The most famous person in Israel who, in the Instagram is Bar Rafaeli. She's a model. She's Israel's top model, the most famous Israeli in the world today. She has something like 800,000 followers. She's almost at 1 million. Now she puts photos of herself and photos of things that she does, and then she puts photos of commercial objects, a brand that she likes, and the people who follow her, they love it. And they give her the same number of likes to these pictures than they give to the other pictures. I think that we have to think that in the modern era, people are a little bit smarter. I don't think that anybody, after reading things in Israel, thinks better things about Banco Polim. Everybody hates Banco Polim because everybody remembers, especially the fact that they laid out like 800 people in a very...
How do people know that they laid out 800 people?
They did it.
Because it was reported in the press.
Yes. No. Wait. I think that we have to deal with the fact that the people today have more senses to find out their way between commercial rubbish.
This is the most serious question.
Because, for example, if you take Israel, if you look at Israel, Israel has the strangest situation. Israel has a newspaper, the biggest newspaper of Israel is a free newspaper paid by a millionaire, and the main object of the newspaper is to write nicely about the prime minister. This is like Russia in the 40s. And it's true, it's not my opinion, everybody agrees on that. It has every day a nice picture of the prime minister on the cover, and it says nice things about him. Now, everybody in Israel, like 50% of the population reads this newspaper, and they don't think anything better about the prime minister after reading it. They don't like him much more, they don't vote for him much more, and they know, and for example, when they read this newspaper, they exactly know who the people are that this newspaper likes more, like the Prime Minister Olmert was the pre. So maybe people are a little smarter. Not that I think that this is not disgusting. I think that this supplement is disgusting, and we don't have a problem there.
Your assumption is a dangerous one, because you assume that kind of the knowledge that you hold, which is very elitist.
No, you are elitist now. You're
very elitist.
No,
which is very
I'm
elitist.
saying that the people are smart, and you're saying that they are not.
I'm not saying that
So
they're
you're
not
not-
smart.
so
I'm not
the
saying that.
condescending
I'm not assuming like consumers are not smart. I think that even smart people need to have the proper tools to know what they're holding and what they're reading. How can you be smart if you have no idea really what's going on? And I'm saying that just to kind of convince you I'm not elitist in that sense. You know, even myself, that I write about it and I kind of watch television, so I look for commercial influence and what's the deal behind the scenes and everything. So many times I kind of miss things, and when somebody tells me, I say, "Oh, really? Was it really there?" Because, oh, now I get it. How can you know things that are trying to be hidden, concealed, surreptitious? And the thing is, and maybe we can lead to, so what do you do about it? Like trying to keep the separation, like trying to keep the ideal, as much as I would like it to happen, is really going against the stream. And I think the mission of press councils and regulatory bodies in the future would be to give proper tools for audiences to understand clearly understand what's going on, what's commercial content, and
Media
what
education
is not.
instead of
It's
regulation.
not only media education; it's also about marking thing and disclosure. But when I'm saying disclosure, it needs to be like proper disclosure of like when I'm reading it, I should know what kind of animal it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to intervene in what is clearly a domestic issue. I'd just like to return to the main subject of the session, which is, are journalistic ethics codes relevant to today's reporter? And to pose the question to continue the debate, one of the key issues we're looking at with our new body is whether we should have a whistleblowing hotline for journalists. So therefore, if you're a journalist subscribing to a strong ethical code and you object when you are told you have to write an article in that supplement, and then you're told it's not supportive enough of the sponsor, would you please rewrite it? What is the answer?
Well, that's a good question. I can address the first part of it. I think ethics codes still are relevant to journalism. I think I told you during the break earlier, Lord Hunt, you asked me what ethics code we ascribe to or promote at the Washington News Council. The gold standard in the States is the Society of Professional Journalists Ethics Code, SPJ Ethics Code, which a lot of you are familiar with. It's been around for a long time. They are in the process of revising it, though. At their conference in Anaheim last month, they invited comment and suggestions on how to improve, toughen, tighten, change their ethics code. That's the main one we use, but we use a lot of others. They're American Society of News Editors, used to be APME, AP Managing Editors Association, and a lot of individual organizations have their own ethics codes. Our approach is, I don't care what ethics code you follow, just tell us. Be transparent, be open about it, be clear about it, and tell your audience that these are the code, these are the standards that you are going to live up to, and the purpose of our Tao of journalism, transparent, accountable, and open approach is that your audience will police you. Your audience will let you know. Now, I agree with Gal, who said before that people are very informed now on a lot of things, not just economics, but on media as well. And some people say, well, there's so much comment and reaction and feedback on the internet now that it's self-policing. Somebody said it's like a self-cleaning oven. The internet is like a self-cleaning oven. Or on the web, it's never wrong for long. Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that. If you have been smeared, and it goes around the world, an inaccurate story about you, it's a permanent smear. So some process to set it right, I think, is vital. I think ethics codes are still valuable. I think a hotline is a really good idea. And yes, if a journalist is asked to write something against his or her own personal or the organization's ethics codes, I think they should be able to step up and protest. On the commercialization, that's really that's area of expertise. But I think transparency is really the most important thing there. If it's clearly marked, clearly labeled, yes, your mother may.
Okay, I want to take it to answer you from a little different angle. One of the popular columns I ever wrote in my life, I published it like 5 years ago. It was a description about how my salary went down within, of course you remember, every journalist remembers it, about how my salary went down as the art and leisure editor in Ma'ariv. It was within 2 years, I went from 20,000 shekels a month to 5,000 shekels a month, doing the same thing. It's a great career. It's a great career move. Well, the newspaper now, if you see how it is. So anyway, so I think the main problem that the press, at least in Israel, is facing is the instability of newspapers, the lack of income. Journalists are, from the moment I started being a journalist till now, journalists became more, how do you say, vulnerable, more vulnerable. They make less money. They, in the way they are perceived in society, their image went down at least 5 degrees, and this whole industry, from being this, when I became a journalist, it was like a really strong and arrogant industry. It became this poor industry of people trying to hold to what they have. And so I think all these things, and of course all these big conglomerates and all the big companies are putting money and are influencing behind the scenes. I think this is happening anyway. I think the way, if you want to maintain a good press, you have to really think totally different and try to understand how the world has evolved and how people are reading these new newspapers and how the information has changed. Just running after the code, sitting in a nice room and trying to see, to put the code a little to the left and a little to the right and say to journalists what they have to do, I think it would be like chasing, in England they say chasing pavements or chasing the wind. You know, I mean, it's like 10 years ago conversations, because when you look at journalists in Israel, everybody in this room, Arik worked with me in a newspaper. We were very, I would say, respectable people in the editorial room. We both ran away from there. And there's nobody there anymore. Hanoch, I worked with Hanoch. Hanoch was my first editor ever when I just started being a journalist. He ran away from it. So the thing is that the good men and the good women and the good people cannot maintain a good position as a journalist anymore. And if you and imposing the codes, who can you impose the codes on nowadays?
I'll refer to your suggestion about the hotline. It just depends where the hotline goes to. Is it to the PCC, in your opinion?
The independent.
The new PCC to become. So, yes, I strongly believe that transparency of the media in the media is probably one of the most powerful tools to promote high standards and ethics. And I think it is a very strong tool. I think it is stronger if it really goes into a media body than to an organization. That's my experience as an Israeli journalist, and I think it is kind of the same in the UK. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the Guardian media is stronger than the PCC in solving this kind of issues. Isn't it the case? That okay? So I rest my case. Yeah, dealing with media ethics in the media is a very, very strong and efficient tool to do it if you do it properly, and probably that's the future of ethics, like transparency by professionals.
Well, everybody knows the answer. The code of ethics says it is, everybody knows how a journalist has to act. What happens if he loses his job? No job. What will he do? You will have this line, and then he will lose the job at the end of the day. There is a problem. There is a problem because there is an economic problem. I say you will say it's a local question, but
no, it's not.
But it is not. As far as we have different newspapers, one who is for the Prime Minister and one who is against the Prime Minister, and one is for Bank Hapoalim and the other will write articles in Haaretz that what happens in Yediot that they are with Bank Hapoalim. Then we have more or less the freedom of press. But it is a very difficult situation. It's easy to say to a young person who is a journalist, well, you have the code of ethics, you will do this and that. He wants to eat, he wants to have a salary. It's not so simple. So I say in Hebrew, I translate it to English, that constitution needs also common sense.
Okay.
This is a good to stop. Or
Absolutely. We
have to stop. Okay. So we're concluding this day. Thank you very much. Thanks to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. 6 o'clock at the lobby. If somebody misses it, they're going to walk to Caesarea. It's a long walk.
TAO. This is my acronym. Transparent, accountable, and open. I believe the journalists who demand that everyone else be transparent, accountable, and open should be equally transparent, accountable, and open about who they are, where they're coming from, who supports them, especially an issue among bloggers, who funds you, accountable if you make mistakes, run corrections, admit you were wrong, follow up stories, and open to any points of
Not
view.
sources. Transparency and
Sources, confidential sources may still be protected, and that is clearly spelled out in our code. No, I certainly agree with that. Personally, I think the fewer confidential sources, the better. I think that to the extent we can have full transparency of sources, it makes journalism more credible. But it's been interesting for me to be here and hear some of the comments. Ola Sigvardsson talked about ethics. Maybe we need a mark of quality and something that can differentiate true ethical journalists from everyone else out there. Well, maybe this is one tool that could do that. Hanak Marmari, talked about who is a journalist and the whole question of is journalism a civic art? Well, I agree with that. How do we encourage that? Dahl Schneider said, she's on her own now, and she said, maybe a voluntary seal of some kind might help. Well, we have one, and we have a website. You can go to anybody in the world can take what we call our Tao of Journalism pledge. Here's I have a few little posters about it that I'd be glad to share.
Does anybody use it?
Yes, we have dozens of people all over the world who are using this right now. A lot of bloggers. I have people in Australia, New Zealand, Bangladesh, India. It's especially popular among student journalists. We've made a real effort to get student journalists, high school and college journalists all over the country in the U.S. are using it. Go to the website, nowjournalism.org, see what you think. It's an experiment. I mean, will this help? I don't know. What else is working? Not much, in my view. So, we're just trying to have some fun with this. We have some special insert sections. The Seattle Times actually ran a section in their newspapers in education program, kind of explaining how this worked. We got a lot of good positive reactions. So,
John?
Yeah, I know it's taken more time than...
it's the first round, you will have another.
Okay, well, I wanted to kind of lay out what we're doing as an experiment. We're different, I think, from most press councils. But if anybody likes these ideas, I'm welcome to talk to you more in detail about them.
It's interesting to hear about your solutions, not only the problems. So I'm sure, and we will have questions from the audience. So we'll have another chance to speak in a moment. Gal.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's very nice to be here. My name is Gal Yushovsky. I worked as a journalist. I think I still work as a journalist, but I worked as a... What?
It's not possible to become a not journalist after you...
Right.
You're in there for life. You're in there for life.
Yes. No, but in the written press, what we call, I worked for almost 30 years. I was, among other things, I was the editor-in-chief of Ha'ir. It's the biggest Tel Aviv newspaper, and I was the art and leisure editor for Ma'ariv, which is the daily newspaper. I come from the world of media and culture, and this is my angle. It's a bit different than Don's angle in this panel. And in the age of transparency, I also bring the point of the LGBT community. I think the question about LGBT people being in or out the closet is one of the most interesting ways to look at the double standards of the press nowadays. I can give you a nice example. For 5 years, I was a judge on the Israeli equivalent of American Idol. We had it was very popular television show in Israel. We were 4 judges on the panel. I was gay and openly gay about it, and it was talked about. There were jokes about it. There was another member on the panel who was a closeted gay man, and so nobody mentioned it. I'm mentioning it now because he since then came out. He's a little older than me, a little more than a little older than me, but still he was closeted at the time. Now, there was you can never always understand why everybody played along with his wanting to be in the closet, because actually, when he came out, he said, but I was never in the closet, just nobody asked me, because he was not married or anything, and he was never attached to a woman in his entire life, and he's 70 right now. And so I think that the LGBT community and the way of coming out in America with the cases of Jodie Foster and the guy from the, I forgot his name, the vulnerable boy. Okay, the guy from CNN, his name just slipped. Who came out? Anderson Cooper. He's coming out like you know the name. So these questions are a good way to look at the way that the media these days treats privacy and secrets. Now, if we broaden it outside of the gay community to all the celebrity industry and the famous people industry, the politician industry, and the press people among them, it's a very interesting question of what the press decides is legitimate to publish and what is not legitimate. When does Tom Cruise have the right to privacy, and why? And how is he using the media during his entire life to get ahead and to make a lot of money? And then, at a certain moment, he decides that this is private and you're not entitled to see things that 5 minutes ago were shown to you and were pushed to you through every media ever. In the age of transparency, when we have internet and Facebook, you've probably heard about Facebook, so everything that's been published, even if a newspaper tries to put something in a secretive way, then 5 minutes later it will be on the internet, everybody will put the names on, and it will not be a secret anyway. In Israel, it goes all the way like this too, because Israel is a very crazy country about news. So anything secret that happens here, that the army or the authorities do not want anybody to know because of security reasons, still goes on the internet in 5 seconds if you know the right websites, and everybody knows the right websites. You can see it and there's no way to stop it. So it goes even beyond, although it's not my field, but it goes beyond art and media. It goes even into like the secrets of security, of like the foundations of what a nation is built on. So so anyway, this is the things that these are the dilemmas that I would like to bring to this panel, and we can discuss them further if you want. Thank you.
Anna, please. We have I think we will have a very diverse panel, so it should be it's a diverse group.
Okay. So my name is Anat Valim, and what you were asking, like, what are the most burning ethical dilemmas for the press these days? And it's a difficult question as much as it's an easy one to answer for me. I've been writing about media for the last 16 years, probably 17 years, I can't remember. and I've been writing a lot about ethics of media and journalism in specific, and I've been covering lots of stories and conflicts and dilemmas as a media writer for the Seventh Eye, which was mentioned here probably more than a few times in this conference, and then I was the media reporter of Haaretz, and now I write my PhD in media, so I write quite a lot about media and its ethics. So is it about the influence of politics? Is it about the influence of money? Is it about, there are so many issues, but then it's also, I think, for me, pretty easy to put it, I'll try to put it that way. I think the most, generally speaking, the most acute problem is the loss of previously existing hierarchies of information that guided our consumption of information, especially news information, right? You know, in the good old days, right, we knew, you know, what is a newspaper, who's a journalist, more or less, or we thought we knew, yeah? Who's behind the article we're reading, how credible it is, what are credible sources and what are not so much credible, what is an ad, commercial, what is not. We kind of knew, we had good signs, and in this wonderful age of abundance of information and the web, this is very quickly eroding and collapsing. And so who's a journalist? You said we'll discuss who's a journalist and who's not. Like, everyone is a journalist. Everybody, you know. I used to have like a few friends who were journalists and colleagues. Now everyone is a poet, a writer, and a journalist, right? Or we think it is. They are. Who's behind this wonderful, rich information we get when we do Google search, right? We can go to the New York Times as much as we can get to this blogger who writes whatever he likes, and nobody knows, you know, what's his agenda.
But everyone is nobody, no?
Yeah. Of course, I'm kind of I'm describing a problem. So the flattening of hierarchies of information is a general problem, and I think it would be like a hot topic in the next few years. And in that area specifically, I mean, that's like my thing, that's the topic of my PhD, and that's, I think this is probably the most acute problem for media in general, and especially for the press, is about commercialization, about the influence of commercialization of content, and probably, it's just my guess, probably Gal and I would disagree about some things in this territory. So there are several names for it. You can call it product placement, you can call it sponsorship, you can call it, like if you criticize it, like I do, you can call it stealth marketing or surreptitious advertising. You could call it advertorials in the press. It's usually called advertorials. These are all names, or branded content. That's kind of the industry's name for it. So there are different names, and they kind of show your orientation towards it. I think it's the most acute problem to the press and to media in general. And I do not talk only about journalism, but also about making documentaries and making dramas and even reality shows. So that's just a hint.
Okay. If you want to ask questions now to the panel, you may. Yeah, Arik?
Question to John. That interesting experiment you've just had with the public hearing, may I assume that you did not base your professional ruling on that particular case on the votes of the public at large?
We released them all basically at the same time, and essentially, you know, gave them all equal value. I mean, the press council ruling, okay, I mean, since we've been doing this for 15 years, the press council does have, you know, some gravitas and credibility. And the panel was an extraordinarily professional group. But we released the live audience vote actually right afterward. And then we gave the online people 2 weeks to vote online.
Okay. So it wasn't a pure question of crowdsourcing, in other words.
Crowdsourcing ethics. That's really kind of what we're trying to do.
But they didn't decide the final outcome. You decided it.
Yeah, we decided the final outcome.
It just happened to correspond. That's
exactly.
Okay.
We're just trying to make it a bigger tent.
Okay.
I mean, when I go to ombudsman conferences, I sometimes ask, why should only the ombudsman be the ones to pass judgment on what their publication or broadcast station did? Well, maybe you could ask the same question, why should press councils be the only ones? With all your expertise and background and knowledge, I mean, yes, you're ideally situated and have the ability to make probably the best, most informed decisions. But the public's pretty smart too. There are a lot of smart people out there. Some of the comments we got on this, on the online vote, the comments were extraordinarily well-informed, insightful, critical, and valid in my view. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to open up the process in this new digital age. Isn't the process opening up all around us every day, every minute? So why not us?
John, why is your organization is the only one survived
Very good question. Very good question. Because American journalists are resistant to accountability. I think it's in their DNA. I think many American journalists, and I was one for quite a long time, just don't like the idea. They're independent, they're feisty, they're arrogant. They don't like anybody second guessing what they do. The National News Council, when it existed, got a lot of support from some very prominent people. Norman Isaacs of the Louisville Courier-Journal was one of the big backers, very respected fellow. But the fact that Ben Bradley and Abe Rosenthal or Washington Post and New York Times never bought in, I think that has kind of influenced the perception of news press councils in the States ever since it went under. But I think it's time to bring it back. We tried to start some new news councils in the States a few years ago with a grant from the Knight Foundation. We had a couple fledgling ones going, one in Southern California, one in New England. Unfortunately, both of them ran into problems and couldn't keep going. I think there should be one in every state. Canada, most Canadian provinces have press councils, and now they're talking about a national press council in Canada. It's an idea, a new idea being floated. I support it. I hope it happens. But you know, why do American journalists? You know, believe me, I've been struggling with that for 15 years.
Culture of journalism, you think
it's a cultural thing. I think it's a resistance, and especially in my country, journalists are mucho, macho, honcho. I use that term.
There are probably more interesting reasons to why people resist it than the fact. I'm not an expert in that, but just from listening to you, I'm sure that there are more interesting arguments for not having it, except for the fact that everybody is arrogant. I mean, you represent one side. I don't know what the other side is, but probably there are more good reasons to not want it than just being arrogant journalists from the New York Times.
Maybe media organizations are resistant more than the journalists who don't want to.
Maybe the people who put money into your organizations are not people, or maybe they come from the wrong side or something.
Okay, well, you're speculating, Gal, and just to try to answer that. Sure, there are a lot of different reasons. Before I started the News Council, I was a press critic and was fairly harshly a media critic. I was fairly harshly critical of a lot of the media in Washington State, so there's some legacy residual position because of that. But I said, look, when we started the News Council, it's a bipartisan organization. My founding board was half Democrats, half Republicans. Half of them had journalism background, half of them were from other professions. It was a very balanced mix. In terms of funding, our first, people ask me, how are you funded? Our initial grant to start the News Council came from Bill Gates Sr., the Gates Foundation, the father of the world's richest man, founder of Microsoft, got interested in what we're doing and gave us a startup grant and continued to fund us. We've diversified our funding. We have funding. I think ethics codes still are relevant to journalism. I think I told you during the break earlier, Lord, you asked me what ethics code we ascribe to or promote at the Washington News Council. The gold standard in the States is the Society of Professional Journalists Ethics Code, SPJ Ethics Code, which a lot of you are familiar with. It's been around for a long time. They are in the process of revising it, though. At their conference in Anaheim last month, they invited comment and suggestions on how to improve, toughen, tighten, change their ethics code. That's the main one we use, but we use a lot of others. American Society of News Editors, American, it used to be APME, AP Managing Editors Association, and a lot of individual organizations have their own ethics codes. Our approach is, I don't care what ethics code you follow, just tell us. Be transparent, be open about it, be clear about it, and tell your audience that these are the code, these are the standards that you are going to live up to, and the purpose of our Tao of journalism, transparent, accountable, and open approach is that your audience will police you. Your audience will let you know. Now, I agree with Gal, who said before, that people are very informed now on a lot of things, not just economics, but on media as well. And some people say, well, you know, there's so much comment and reaction and feedback on the internet now that it's self-policing. You know, somebody said it's like a self-cleaning oven. The internet is like a self-cleaning oven. Or on the web, it's never wrong for long. Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that. If you have been smeared, and it goes around the world, an inaccurate story about you, it's a permanent smear. So some process to set it right, I think, is vital. I think ethics codes are still valuable. I think a hotline is a really good idea. And yes, if a journalist is asked to write something against his or her own personal or the organization's ethics codes, I think they should be able to step up and protest. On the commercialization, that's really, and that's you know, area of expertise, but I think transparency is really the most important thing there. If it's clearly marked, clearly labeled, yes, your mother may...
Okay, I want to take it, to answer you from a little different angle. One of the popular columns I ever wrote in my life, I published it like 5 years ago. It was a description about how my salary went down within, of course you remember, every journalist remembers it, about how my salary went down as the art and leisure editor in Ma'ariv. It was within 2 years, I went from 20,000 shekels a month to 5,000 shekels a month, doing the same thing.
It's a great career.
It's a great career. It's a great career move. Well, the newspaper now, if you see how it is. So anyway, so I think the main problem that the press, at least in Israel, is facing is the instability of newspapers, the lack of income. Journalists are, from the moment I started being a journalist till now, journalists became more, how do you say, vulnerable, more vulnerable. They make less money. They, in the way they are perceived in society, their image went down at least 5 degrees, and this whole industry, from being this, when I became a journalist, it was like a really strong and arrogant industry. It became this poor industry of people trying to hold to what they have. And so I think all these things, and of course all these big conglomerates and all the big companies are putting money and are influencing behind the scenes. I think this is happening anyway. I think the way, if you want to maintain a good press, you have to really think totally different and try to understand how the world has evolved and how people are reading these new newspapers and how the information has changed. Just running after the code, sitting in a nice room and trying to put the code a little to the left and a little to the right and say to journalists what they have to do, I think it would be like chasing, in England they say chasing pavements or chasing the wind. You know, I mean, it's like 10 years ago conversations, because when you look at journalists in Israel, everybody in this room, Arik worked with me in a newspaper. We were very, I would say, respectable people in the editorial room. We both ran away from there. And there's nobody there anymore. Hanoch, I worked with Hanoch. Hanoch was my first editor when I just started being a journalist. He ran away from it. So the thing is that the good men and the good women and the good people cannot maintain a good position as a journalist anymore. And if you and imposing the codes, who can you impose the codes on nowadays?
Not
I'll refer to your suggestion about the hotline. It just depends where the hotline goes to. Is it to the PCC, in your opinion?
The independent.
The new PCC to become. So yes, I strongly believe that transparency of the media in the media is probably one of the most powerful tools to promote high standards and ethics. And I think it is a very strong tool. I think it is stronger if it really goes into a media body than to an organization. That's my experience as an Israeli journalist, and I think it is kind of the same in the UK. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the Guardian media is stronger than the PCC in solving this kind of issues. Isn't it the case? That okay? So I rest my case. So yeah, dealing with media ethics in the media is a very, very strong and efficient tool to do it if you do it properly, and probably that's the future of ethics, like transparency by professionals.
Everybody knows the answer. The code of ethics says it is everybody knows how a journalist has to act. What happens if he loses his job? No job. What will he do? You will have this line, and then he will lose the job at the end of the day. There is a problem. There is a problem because there is an economic problem. I say you will say it's a local question, but
no, it's not.
But it is not. As far as we have different newspapers, one who is for the Prime Minister and one who is against the Prime Minister, and one is for Bank Hapoalim and the other will write articles in Haaretz that what happens in Yediot that they are with Bank Hapoalim. Then we have more or less the freedom of press. But it is a very difficult situation. It's easy to say to a young person who is a journalist, well, you have the code of ethics, you will do this and that. He wants to eat, he wants to have a salary. It's not so simple. So I say in Hebrew, I translate it to English, that constitution needs also common sense.
Okay.
This is a good to stop. Or
absolutely. We
have to stop. Okay. So we're concluding this day. Thank you very much. Thanks the panel. Thank you.
Thank you.